Twoim i całego zespołu wydawnictwa Macmillan na dzisiejszym webinarium. Mam nadzieję, że dobrze mnie widać i dobrze mnie słychać, ale na wszelki wypadek poproszę od Państwa o znak na czacie, czy wszystko świetnie. Widzę, że już są potwierdzenia. Bardzo się cieszę. Zanim przejdziemy do części zasadniczej naszego dzisiejszego spotkania, chciałabym powiedzieć kilka słów tytułem wstępu. W tym roku przygotowaliśmy dla Państwa dwa kursy dla szkół średnich, Password Reset i Checkpoint. Oba tytuły doskonale odpowiadają na wyzwania, które postawiła przed nami nowa podstawa programowa, a gwarancją tego są autorki tych książek, fantastyczne, doskonale Państwu znane polskie autorki, Marta Rosińska i Monika Cichmińska. Na wszelkie pytania dotyczące książek, podręczników oczywiście odpowiedzą Państwu nasi reprezentanci. Kontakt do reprezentantów dostępny jest oczywiście na naszej stronie internetowej w www.macmillan.pl w zakładce reprezentanci, a dzisiaj jest z nami na czacie reprezentant naszego wydawnictwa z województwa małopolskiego, Paweł Nosek. Witam Cię, Pawle, bardzo serdecznie, bardzo się cieszę, że jesteś z nami. Gdyby się pojawiły jakieś pytania już dzisiaj, to oczywiście Paweł jest do Państwa dyspozycji i w krótkiej sesji pytań i odpowiedzi na koniec naszego spotkania z chęcią wszelkich odpowiedzi udzieli. Ale oczywiście zachęcamy również Państwa do kontaktu bezpośredniego z reprezentantami w Państwa regionie. Jeśli jesteście już Państwo zdecydowani na któryś z naszych kursów, to oczywiście serdecznie zapraszamy. Warto skontaktować się z naszym reprezentantem i wypełnić informacje o wykorzystywanym podręczniku, aby zapewnić sobie wszystkie niezbędne pomoce dydaktyczne. Wśród tych pomocy znajdzie się Teacher's Book z nadpisanymi odpowiedziami oraz absolutnie zupełna nowość, zeszyt ćwiczeń w wersji dla nauczyciela z odpowiedziami. Do obu kursów mogą Państwo otrzymać również Teacher's Resource Center z oprogramowaniem tablicy interaktywnej, filmami oraz generatorem testów dla podręcznika Checkpoint. Do obu kursów przygotowaliśmy również testy w formacie Word i PDF, a oprócz tego każdy nauczyciel wybierający nasze podręczniki otrzyma również zestaw Matura Speaking Cards, to zestaw kart tematycznych autorstwa cenionej nauczycielki i blogerki Karoliny Lubas. Karty nie tylko ułatwią rozwój komunikacji pod kątem egzaminu ustnego, ale również pomogą Państwa uczniom powtórzyć poznane słownictwo. Drugi materiał to Grammar in Use Worksheets autorstwa dr Moniki Cichmińskiej. To 10 arkuszy pracy, które łączą powtórzenie gramatyki z treningiem zadań maturalnych, sprawdzających znajomość środków językowych zarówno na poziomie podstawowym, jak i na poziomie rozszerzonym. Oprócz tego dostępne są również materiały dla nauczyciela w wersji elektronicznej w naszym serwisie Staffroom, www.staffroom.pl. Tam znajdują się zestawy teaching notes, zestawy testów, dodatkowych kart pracy, nagrania audio ze skryptami, klucze odpowiedzi oraz rozkład materiału, plan wynikowy i kryteria oceniania. A ponadto wszyscy nauczyciele, którzy wybiorą książki Password Reset oraz Checkpoint, otrzymają również dostęp do elektronicznego zeszytu ćwiczeń i słownictwa w aplikacji Quizlet. Kolejny prezent, który dla Państwa przygotowaliśmy, to absolutny hit. How to Power Your Point to 5 filmików, w których mistrz prezentacji, dr Grzegorz Śpiewak, podpowie, w jaki sposób zaplanować, przygotować i wygłosić super prezentację. Te szkolenia są przygotowane przede wszystkim dla Państwa uczniów, ale oczywiście skorzystać z nich mogą również Państwo. Nie przedłużając już, chciałabym serdecznie powitać naszego dzisiejszego znamienitego speakera, doktora Grzegorza Śpiewaka, charyzmatycznego trenera, głównego konsultanta metodycznego wydawnictwa Macmillan, którego w zasadzie nie muszę przedstawiać Państwu, który zaserwuje Państwu coś absolutnie pysznego. Ale zanim oddam głos doktorowi Śpiewakowi, to chciałabym również przypomnieć, że dzisiejsze nasze webinarium jest oczywiście częścią naszego kompleksowego, 4-letniego programu wsparcia Roadmap to Matura 2023, w którym staramy się Państwa wspierać i pomagamy w przygotowaniu Waszych uczniów do Matury 2023. Także nie przedłużam, serdecznie zapraszam, życzę owocnej sesji.
Thank you very much. Welcome everybody. Good evening. First of all, let me check that you can hear me and see me. Is everything okay? Please let me know in the chat box. Excellent. Yes, the webinar is being recorded, and the recording the full recording will be available to you together with a selection of slides. Marisha will tell you all about it at the end, I'm sure. So if everything is okay, then I'm ready to start, and it's fantastic to see so many of you here. What I would like to begin with is a little opening puzzle, if I may. The puzzle, which I hope you appreciate, will have something to do with the title of this session, so I'm making it very easy for you, as I'm sure everybody has had a rather long day. Nevertheless, here is that puzzle. What is the connecting feature of all of these things? And I hope you won't mind too much the piece in the very center. There's something that they all share. There's something connecting all of these. Can anybody perhaps venture a guess in the chat box? What is it that they have in common, all of them? Coffee, tea, fruit, taste, flavor. That's all. Very close, and pleasure, yes, but there's something else I need. I'm working for a word. Do you recall the full, yes, blending? Thank you very much. It is Ilona, I think, that takes the first prize. Of course, there's no physical prize, but the honor. So thank you, Ilona. Yes, blending is what I had in mind, because all of these things, of course, can and are indeed blended, and so to sort of continue with the metaphor, it's all very well, but what about the new core curriculum, the new Matura, 2023, and the new teenagers? And I hope that you can guess by now, this is the reason and the concept behind the title of this session. My claim today is that at least potentially, we can also hope for a perfect blend of these three. And when I say a perfect blend, I really need to communicate to you three important things to begin with. The three are, first and importantly, I really want to look at the situation as it is going to unravel, as of the beginning of September 2015, not in terms of challenges only, discrepancies, deficits, but a lot more positively, if you like. Yes, there are challenges, of course, and we will need to face them, but what I want to do with you tonight is offer you some sort of positive way of looking at those factors with the hope of instilling a certain amount of confidence and maybe even enthusiasm for what's coming up as of September 1st. That's the first thing. The second thing that I want to say is that if you look at the requirements, stipulations of the new core curriculum, then one way to interpret them is that we are really going to be dealing with a new cocktail, a new blend of skills, language skills, communicative skills, and there is one dominant ingredient within that cocktail, that blend, and it is the skill of mediation. I will have to say more about it in the second part of the session. And in conjunction with this new blend will, I think, or at least should, make us try and rethink afresh certain pedagogical strategies, selection of activities, types of things that we do behind the proverbial classroom doors. And I'll be trying to give you a few pointers in that direction. And the last and equally important thing is that this new blend of skills, essentially, as far as I am concerned, means that we really cannot afford to teach those language skills in an unblended way. To translate this into something more mainstream, methodologically, the world of integrated skills has sort of resurfaced in a new way, more so than perhaps was the case before the new curriculum got introduced. So this is the perspective from within which I'm going to be looking at this material, beginning with, since this is supposed to be a blend, the first ingredient of the blend is the teenagers themselves. Now, maybe some of you have already had a chance to take part, or at least watch the recording of something that Professor Alicja Gałązka and my humble self had the chance of doing back in December 2018 to sort of kickstart this whole roadmap to Matura 2023 program. And it was a session in which the objective was to really look very much in depth at who those new teenagers are that you're going to be working with as of September 1st. The recording of that session is still available. As you can see, the link is underneath, and it will be included in this selection of slides that I told you about at the beginning. So if anybody has not seen it yet, I do encourage you to take a look. Professor Gałązka is wonderful, I think, in the way that she looks very, very seriously at the shape, the cognitive shape, the psychological shape of those teenagers. But I am referring to this session for a specific reason, and the reason is that Alicja introduced a critical notion during that e-conference, and this was the notion of or I generation. To sort of give you a reference straight away, the notion, the term, oh, thank you for saying that, Krystyna. The notion comes from a most interesting publication by Jean Twenge, the one that you can now see on my slide. And as you can see, apart from the term itself, there's also a very interesting subheading that, again, Alicja had a lot to say about, which is, as you can see, this idea of those people being super connected, as they are sometimes called, but as a result, displaying a range of features, both good and bad, that we are probably well advised as professionals to take on board before we start teaching them anything. Now, to sort of lighten the mood a little bit and to illustrate what perhaps could be meant by those features or cognitive factors that are characteristic of these people, here's a little cartoon that I would like to share with you. I think it really says a lot about both who these people are and the relationship, the potential issues that may surface when it comes to the way that we adults of the former previous generation have to relate to these people. But thanks for liking it. But now I'm going to turn serious again and sort of link that, this sort of cognitive situation to something which is a lot closer to our everyday concerns as language teachers, and it is in particular the way that this new generation is seen as readers of any text in the mother tongue, in English, in any text that they happen to encounter. And you can probably guess what I'm about to say next. I wonder, would anybody venture a guess about what the new norm of reading with those teenagers happens to be? Yes, they are e-readers, absolutely. That, a lot of the reading that they do is mediated with some sort of screen, but this has a very specific effect, consequence for, yes, scanning, and in particular, not just scanning short text, absolutely, and I'm waiting for yet another word, scanning, and the other one that's very often mentioned together, I think I already saw it for a moment, skimming. Thank you very much. Yes. So, of course, it's not just me being suddenly smart. I recommend a fascinating article, which you can trace online, the article that appeared in the Guardian books a few months back by Marian Wolf, in which this is basically stated. The new norm is skimming, with word spotting and browsing through the text as a sort of preferred modes of interacting with any sort of written word. Now, you might say, well, but why should this, of all the other factors, be so relevant? And the answer is because, you see, it only reflects, or is one reflex of something a lot more profound, which is, yes, thank you, Anna, for saying this, the crucial deficit in the type of processing that a lot of these people display. Of course, again, it's not me suddenly being smart. This thinking has a long history, actually. You might say that it goes all the way back to the research of people like Marshall Macmillan back in the 1960s. So we are talking of 50 years back. And Macmillan, back in those years, made a very important claim about the fact that the medium, actually, the medium that you use, the dominant medium, determines the type of processing which you will display because of that medium. And when you now think about online sources, the internet at large, as the sort of dominant medium for these people, it just so happens that the characteristics of the medium will invite the reader to move from one stimulus to the next in rapid progression. That's the way it is. You know, you scroll down information on Facebook or something else, and you know how it is. You really hardly ever stop. Yes, surface reading. Thank you for that, Małgorzata. So you hardly ever stop and really ponder a lot. You rather tend to scroll down because there's another interesting thing, you know, another cat or something else crazy awaiting you. And because of that, people like Macmillan and some others that I'm going to quote in a moment are basically saying, look, if you see that the medium, such as online, as being dominant, and the medium itself favors this kind of fast, multi-processed encounter with text, then it's almost inevitable that there will be generally less attention and less time being allocated to processing information in any kind of in-depth way. And if this is the case, then there will be relatively few instances of inferencing, critical thinking, empathy displays, you know, when it comes to encountering text. And I hope that by now you can see what I'm driving at. The reference that I alluded to a moment ago, amongst many others, is this one. If you don't know this book, please read it. It's a fascinating read about what it is that online information processing generally does to our brains. And when I say our, I don't just mean teenage brains, because of course we as adults are just as much part of that game. The difference is that as adults, we also have a history of alternative forms of reading. And a lot of those youngsters generally do not, or at least the proportions are very different. And again, why would we worry, or why should we worry about it? Well, here is one answer. Because of course, this, if you like, cognitive or text processing situation must affect and will affect the way that they will be or not be able to respond well to the stipulations of the new core curriculum. Now, to bring this home, let us take a look at some of the requirements, at least. If you need a more systematic presentation of these, I recommend something that I had the privilege of helping edit, and this is this Macmillan version or interpretation of the new core curriculum and a critical comparative analysis of it with the previous one. So if you need any more information, that's the place to look. I will draw on it just for a little while to give you a few examples of the types of things that are being amplified in those new requirements. So here are 4 of them. I'm quoting them verbatim in Polish because, you know, that's where they are taken from a Polish document. I hope everybody can benefit. So as you can see here, it's a question of how you relate to the opinions and views of other people, how you interpret intention, attitude of the sender of information, how you entertain hypothetical situations, and last but not least, how you recognize and interpret information which is provided indirectly. And I hope that you can see already what my argument is. And the argument very simply is that all of these things are definitely not shallow ways to process information. You see what the point is. So if the preferred mode of interaction is shallow, is the skimming mode, then as a generation, they are going to need our support as fantastic professionals, ones that have had that history of alternative reading, and it is us that they need, and the advice, the quality advice from us that they will need in order to cope with those new challenges that are going to befall them. So, you know, if you are thinking, okay, but it's sort of, it's a general philosophical pronouncement, but how do I translate this into any kind of working strategy? Here is how. If you take the iGens on the one hand, which I hope you agree with me, they are more to the sort of shallow end of things when it comes to reading. When I say shallow end, another way to describe it is the lower order thinking skills. You know, the basic understanding, the basic processing, rather than the higher order thinking skills, a lot of which are amplified in the new core curriculum. So if you want to marry the two, the strategy is you need to give them exposure, not just to the preferred mode of interacting with text, in our case, English text, but also some of the exposure to the higher order. And of course, the whole trick is to work out some kind of balanced approach. Again, I'm not that smart myself. I am taking advantage of research and thinking of someone very, very interesting. Again, I recommend his thinking and publications most warmly, John Hughes in particular, who is completing, even as we speak, completing a new book on the subject together with Paul Dummett. As you can see, the reference is 2019. The book has not come out yet, but when it will, I'm sure it will be most relevant and interesting to our Polish context. Basically, just to give you a sort of, you know, a little foretaste of the feast to come, basically what the two of them have done is they've translated the general philosophy of, you know, lower and higher order thinking skills into something incredibly workable from the perspective of a foreign language teacher. As you can see, they are dividing up this whole world into basic comprehension, critical thinking, and creative thinking abilities. And now comes the interesting moment, because what they have noticed and presented most beautifully is that each of those can be married with a certain number of task types, including the way that the task instructions are written, which, if you know about it because you are a conscientious professional and you're spending your evenings watching webinars rather than enjoying a well-deserved rest and a glass of something red, maybe. So when you do know about these things, it will help you create this sort of healthy diet of skills for your teenagers. I will exemplify all of them for you. So those critical or the basic comprehension tasks, what are they? Well, you know, there will be tasks like fill in the blanks, true, false questions, matching activities where you have, you know, ready-made options. You just need to select, and finding answers in a text. This is all to do with basic comprehension. Is that all right? So what I'm trying to show you is that in a moment you will see a number of examples where those very verbs and a bunch of others will resurface. So in a way, it's a way to read between the lines of task instructions. Critical thinking. What is critical thinking characteristic of? Well, tasks like analyze a text, summarize a text, evaluate an opinion, justify opinions, justify choice of a particular construction, etc. Okay, those are, if you like, the middle range. Now, creative thinking, the highest order thinking skills, will be, amongst others, exemplified by tasks like give a presentation, write your own version of something, find an alternative solution to a problem, linguistic, communicative, problem-solving tasks, etc. You see? So what I love about this approach is that I can immediately see how it can be translated into the way I look at what is provided for me as a language professional and how I'm going to work out that healthy diet. Am I making sense? So as you can probably guess, what I'm trying to say here is that I am not suddenly saying, look, forget about the things and the ways that they actually do read. Forget about the lower order thinking skills. No, what you need is you need a healthy diet, right? A nice balanced diet of the two. And if you're smart about it, you will be able to relate to both types. Okay, examples coming up, but I want to really make sure that this sinks in. So I'm putting this on a separate slide, and that is the idea of a balanced diet of lots, a nice acronym, isn't it? Lots for lower order thinking skills and HOTS, which is higher order thinking skills. All right, so time for examples. Are you ready for examples? Okay, so here is the first one. What I am about to do now is I'm going to give you a few ready-made examples taken straight from the two courses that my colleague introduced at the beginning to show you that this is completely possible without investing a huge amount of your extra energy. So take a look at this task, for instance. In your notebook, match the adjectives below with sentences 1 to 10 in exercise 2. Question to you, is this lower order or higher order, basic comprehension or more? Lower order? Absolutely. Zofia, I think, was the first one, wasn't it? Yeah, basic level comprehension, okay? Lower order thinking task. Again, I want to make absolutely sure that we understand one another here, which is that I am not saying that a lower order thinking task is not useful. Of course it is, but what I am saying is we need a balanced diet of the lower and the higher thinking skills ones in order for them to be able to face the challenges of the new core curriculum as well as the new Matura. So another example now, divide the adjectives into positive, negative, and neutral. How about this one? Equally basic or a little more higher order? You tend to be saying basic, but some people are saying more, right? Now, I will side with those who say slightly more higher order. The reason being is here, as you can see, in order for the matching to take place, you need to engage a little more in depth with this material. There will be some of these adjectives, yeah, slightly, absolutely. There will be some which are clearly positive and some that are clearly negative, but there may be others which are maybe a little negative, maybe a little positive, depending on the situation. So the learner needs to engage slightly more in depth with this material. Okay, not highest order, but a little higher order. Okay, two examples like this. I'll give you another example. This time I'll look at Marta Roszinska's publication, Password Reset. Look at this one. Choose the correct choose the correct option to complete the sentences. Lower or higher? Correct option. Again, yes, basic or lower order. Okay, absolutely. Thank you very much. Lots of people responding. Fantastic. Okay, now critically, and this is an interesting moment, critically, the very same unit. Okay, the very same unit of the book. Why the same unit? I'll tell you in a moment, but take a look. What do you think? Work in pairs, discuss the questions using the prompts below. What about the level of processing now? Okay, so you see what I'm driving at. First and most importantly, the same linguistic material, the same level linguistic resources can lend itself to both lower and higher order thinking tasks. In other words, it's a separate, there are two separate parameters. One parameter of difficulty is how many linguistic resources are displayed in a given task. And the second, independent, though related, parameter of difficulty is how cognitively complex a particular task happens to be. And of course, you can have, lower challenge because it's low linguistic resources and low cognitive challenge, and maximally high difficulty because the level of linguistic difficulty is high and the level of cognitive challenge is high, and you can have the other two mixed types as well. And this is, I think, the way that we can benefit the most from the methodology proposed by Hughes and Dommett, you see? So they are saying to us, look, we can be very strategic and smart about it, okay? I'll give you another example, okay? Task which of itself is relatively lower order thinking. Put the words in the box into one of the four categories. Yeah, it's just a classification exercise, very similar to the one where you would just put them into four different boxes. It just looks a little more modern because of that, spidergram shape. All right. And my question to you is, how could we make a task like this a little hotter? What would we need to add to the instruction in order to up the cognitive challenge of this task? Any suggestions? Okay, ask questions about it, discuss, make a story. Okay, yes, making a story would obviously fall into higher order. Okay, and if you stick a little sort of, add words, thank you for this. Yes, Dobrochna, because of course, inviting learners to come up with their own examples is already upping the cognitive challenge. Yet another way would be to say, look, I want you to add a further category to the four that are already given. So we have places, people, symptoms, and medical treatment. Can you think of a fifth parameter that would, with which you could also use some of these words, you see? Now, would you like an example? I have an example because I've tried this with real learners and teenagers, and one fantastic suggestion that has come back is things you could die of. Things you could die of. It's a lovely one, isn't it? Because you think about it, there are certain things like antibiotics that you could die of. You could be allergic to them. You could take an overdose of them. You see, right? And in fact, you could argue that you could even die of a bad doctor, so to speak, etc. You see, so you take a piece of material which is of itself relatively lower order, and if you feel that the class is strong on a given day and they can take on more challenge, you add a slightly more higher order thinking task to it. That's the basic methodology. Speaking of which, a great book will have a good number of such opportunities. Let me give you yet another puzzle, since you seem to be cooperating so beautifully. Okay, so look at this one. This one's taken from Checkpoint. Work with a partner, talk about the order in which the activities below usually happen. As you can see, I have hidden away a little bit of the instruction. My question to you is, what have I hidden? Of course, it could be any number of things, could it not? And notice that the interesting thing about this moment is, if I do it, in a live workshop, the room always goes silent. Why? Because, of course, the brain starts entertaining hypothetical situations. Precisely one of those four features that I showed you, in my small selection of things taken from the new core curriculum. You see, so as soon as I hide a little bit of information, I invite the learner or yourselves in this situation to entertain a range of possible hypothetical situations. I am therefore upping the level of cognitive challenge. Why am I going on and on about it? Because what I want to show you here is that in order to cook this balanced diet of lower and higher order thinking skills, you do not necessarily have to do extra work. You just have to be smart about it. So I'm not telling you, come up with very fancy extra handouts, come up with really crazy exercise types. Rather, take advantage of the potential that the material itself offers. Okay, so in this particular case, in case you are interested, I hope you are, the hidden bit of the instruction was, in your notebook, write a story that uses all the activities from the list. And as you can see, not only is this a creative task, but there's also an extra linguistic challenge, which is that all of the items need to be somehow merged into the story. That's how you can make something a lot hotter by increasing the amount of challenge in the instruction itself. But I'm also giving you a little extra trick or strategy, which is that if you know that the class is strong on a particular day, you could play this kind of hiding game with them, like this one, so you show them only, in this case, a range of words and phrases, and you hide the entire task instruction. And then you tell them, look, what do you think the task could be? Spend a moment, talk to a neighbor, come up with a possible instruction for these words and phrases. And if you're thinking, is this not just using up time and taking time away from actually doing this task? Well, my argument is no, it isn't. It's crucial time for them to process this material, linguistic material, a lot more in depth by coming up with hypotheses about what could possibly connect this language. And this is very much moving towards the higher order end of things when it comes to the level of cognitive challenge. Another example, if I may, I wonder if you can recognize the type of task that I am showing you here with the following items to be processed by the learner: bedroom, bathroom, study, dining room, wardrobe, living room, and kitchen. What is the task type here? Absolutely, thank you. I think Christina was the first one now. By the way, I just saw a wonderful comment from Katarzyna, who says, I understand about the previous one, that if you do it with your students, they really get to be quite creative. Precisely. And, creative not in an unconstrained way, because what they are doing is they are processing a certain number of linguistic items. I'll go back just so that everybody is on the same page. Items like this. And when you hide the instruction, they never see the instructions. It's very easy these days. You can do it, if you have access to a beamer, you just beam the words from a page of an ebook without showing them the instructions. Very simple. Yeah. If you don't, you just write the words on a traditional blackboard. That's all that's to it. And you just get them to process this and come up with some kind of story, which is a task instruction behind them. Okay, returning to odd one out. You are absolutely right. Odd one out. Which one is the odd one out? Kind of obvious, isn't it? Odd one out, I hope you agree, is a lower order thinking task, isn't it? Why? Because effectively it's a test where there is one correct predetermined answer, and as soon as somebody hits the word wardrobe, that's the end of the game, isn't it? So either you know it or you don't know it. Not much in terms of interpretation, etc. So, interestingly, all it takes is a great teacher to make this a lot hotter. How? Well, take a look. Imagine you run it as a classic odd one out, and a good student, I call her Marysia, because Marysia tends to be a good student. Okay, so Marysia, of course, shouts out wardrobe. So you remove it, or you cross it out, or you tell the learners to cross it out, and now the fun begins. Because everybody now is left with bedroom, bathroom, study, dining room, living room, and kitchen. And the question reappears, which is the odd one out now? And why? Okay, so Okay, now I'm getting good ones, like Eva says, bathroom because you prefer to be alone. But I hope you agree that this is not the only possible answer. It all depends on how you justify. And if you recall Hughes and Dummett's terminology, now I have another great answer, study, because it's the shortest. Study because it's a verb, or can be a verb, right? Can be a verb, you see? So it all depends on the quality of the story, okay? In other words, something which at its basic level is a basic level task can easily be tweaked into a more higher order thinking task. All it takes is a great methodology. Very little effort, however. I hope you like it. And of course, if you are really naughty, then you could play odd 3 out, which is, when they agree as a group or pair or whole class that, let's say, it should be study. Let's just take study as an argument. You take it away from them again. You cross it out and say, what about now? And notice again, it's lovely because it's an exercise in empathy. You attach yourself to a hypothesis. It's yours already because, you argued passionately for it. And then you say, sorry, now you have to argue for something else and come up with yet another story. Okay? And now you see Katarzyna saying bedroom, bathroom, dining room, they all have room, etc. And the lovely thing from our perspective as language teachers is that this kind of thinking will inevitably lead to more language production. Rather than just shouting one word, the odd one out, wardrobe, you actually encourage them to produce a lot more language. I really, really recommend this task. It's originally, I learned it from Lindsay Cranfield, and I've used this in a number of different contexts since. It's always worked. It's a lovely, lovely idea. It works with basic level people. It works with higher competence students because, as this image now suggests, it allows to squeeze more out of something which is already good. And that's the lovely thing about this methodology. Notice, all I'm doing is I'm taking great material from where I find it and I squeeze it. I make it work even more with my students. I push them, in other words, a little higher. Okay, so I hope that you know where I'm coming from with this, but I still have a little bit of time, so I'll give you a few more examples of how this methodology could really, really become a completely systematic way in which we work with good material, as you find it, for instance, in a great textbook. Okay, so here's another example. I don't expect you to read the whole of this text. Don't worry. That's why it's so small. Okay. Oh, thanks for liking my image, Małgorzata. That was the purpose of the exercise. No. I do not need anyone to read through this text. So just, imagine that you know it and your students already know it. Okay. They've used it for the basic comprehension. The true, false, the multiple matching things, the tasks that you regularly will find with such text in a good textbook. And now I would like to sell you something extra. Okay, so what I suggest we do, and I'll just select one potential example for us to make things a little quicker. Imagine that as I read it as a teacher, I decide that in this text, I happen to have a couple of instances of an interesting construction, which is, at the right linguistic level for my students. And I want to focus my students a lot more at the higher order end of things with this particular construction. I'll give you an example. For the sake of argument, I've selected these two small fragments from this text, and I hope you can tell me very quickly what the target grammatical construction is. The one that both of them display. Of course, Katarzyna, thank you very much. Of course, it's two examples of past perfect, okay? It's, elementary level text. And now what I want to do is the following. Instead of getting the students to do the traditional, deductive or inductive rule formation, I want them to do something slightly different. Here is what. I want them to actually look at these examples and try and, in their own words, explain why the writer happens to be using past perfect in the two cases. Okay, when I say in their own words, it's critical that they are not simply quoting the rule from the book. They are actually trying to explain to me in their own words what it is that this construction means in this very fragment. Okay, and interestingly also, it could be done in the mother tongue. This is a great moment for them to appropriate this construction by interpreting this in their own language. Okay, yes, it's a wonderful case of mediation. I'll come to mediation in a moment a lot more. But again, to give you a systematic presentation of this approach. So the two examples had been great friends and had got the highest mark. The same question for both. Why is the writer using had been, and why is the writer using had got in those two cases? All right. Now, what I have prepared for you is a sample answer by a real teenager. Would you like to see? It's going to be in the mother tongue. I hope there are no non-native speakers of Polish in the room. If they are, let me know, then I will tell you. Here is a sample answer, okay? Had been great friends. And the teenager says, byli przyjaciółmi, zanim poszli do szkoły, odkąd mieli 5 lat, a w czasie jak poszli, to nadal się kumplowali. To had been określa jakby czas akcji, I love the word jakby, do you not? Która miała miejsce w historii jeszcze przed inną akcją. Teraz już skończyli tę podstawówkę. Do you see? What I'm getting here is I'm getting a lot of material to communicate with this learner about language, about grammar, because he, in this case, has just mediated this use in his own words, appropriated it, as methodologists say these days, and now I am in the position to say, okay, so let's talk about it. Is it really actions? What do you mean by jakby? So are you sure? Are you not sure? You're just using this word because it's a slot filler? Talk about language through asking a very simple higher order question, why? Why is the writer using it? Now, about had got, even more interesting, najpierw zdobył tę ocenę, a potem gadał o tym w kółko. Dopóki nie dostał oceny, to nie mógł o tym gadać. Very teenage, isn't it? It's an authentic example. I couldn't have thought of this myself. W drugim przykładzie jest akcja, action verb, w pierwszym passive verb? Nie, state verb, czyli w tym pierwszym jest habit. Now, I hope you can see now how this whole methodology is opening up, because you see, he is now displaying a whole range of moments where I can become useful. I can negotiate with him and try and together with him co-construct the meaning of, do you really think that this is a passive verb? So what is the passive verb? You see, you're probing the understanding of the terminology a lot more in depth, because originally he had a chance to do it in his own way. And this methodology is from yet another wonderful publication, this one here, From Rules to Reasons. Yes, Katarzyna, I absolutely agree. It really shows the way that they think, rather than the way that I think they think. It's a big difference, okay? And giving them this opportunity really opens it up. I do recommend this book by Danny Norrington Davis. It's a very systematic demonstration of how this approach could work on a semester, yearly basis. It's not a one-off, and he provides tens of really convincing examples of how this creates a lot more understanding in the learner and a lot more material for me to work on as a teacher. And also, interestingly, Norrington Davis himself sees this as a way to equip the learner with a genuine life skill, a way to independently, autonomously process language, even when I am not around as his teacher any longer. So I really recommend this to you as an instance of how we will eventually also help them prepare for the third ingredient in my blend, which of course is the new Matura. And I do not have a huge amount of time for this, as the evening is inevitably developing, into a night. But I do want to give you a few pointers, because, as I hope you remember, at the very beginning, I promised I would focus a little bit on that critical ingredient in this new blend of skills. And this critical new ingredient is mediation. Now, when I say new, of course, I am not saying that suddenly the authors of the new core curriculum or the authors of the Common European Framework invented a new macro language skill. No, but what has happened over the course of the past couple of years with the publication of all of these documents is the priorities have shifted. Emphasis has changed from what it used to be to what I think genuinely is an interesting new state of affairs. Now, mediation itself, you will recall, is something that we have been playing with for a long, long time. But in a sense, it would be easy to restrict it only to, for instance, cases of translation. I agree, Katarzyna. I think it is a good change, actually. Right. So, this, of course, is a case of mediation, isn't it? Napisz w zeszycie, co byś powiedział po angielsku w każdej z opisanych sytuacji. It's actually mediating from the description of a situation in the mother tongue into a small piece of text in the second language. You also need to interpret that situation, come up with some kind of suggestion for how you would do this linguistically. It's a case of mediation. Another example of mediation, this time from Marta's publication, express the ideas below in English using formal phrases. So as you see, the previous one was about mediating between the two languages without necessarily pushing the learner to consider the level of formality. This one does the same and adds this extra parameter. Certainly higher order, isn't it? Certainly very challenging, certainly a case of mediation. But, and this is what I'm trying to finish off tonight's session, this is by no means the only way to interpret this skill when it comes to actual productive use of language. And this is what I would like to show you as my last piece of the puzzle, because you see, if you look at a piece of text like this one, and if you use a technique that I already recommended earlier on, and as you can see, I am basically giving you a taste of my own medicine. I am hiding the instruction, or at least most of the instruction from you, in order, remember, to get you to entertain hypothetical situations. What could, in this case, what could the reason be for a user, not just a language learner in a classroom who I basically tell, demand that they use it, okay? So what would a possible reason be for a real life user to ever read this text? Polish consulate, passport office, applying for a temporary passport. What could the situation be, and why is the learner in a moment going to be processing this information linguistically? It is definitely hotter, I do agree, Gabriela. Can you think of a reason? What could the situation possibly be? I'll take a sip of water while you're processing. So you, the reader, the user, you're reading the information from the consulate's website. Why? What is the situation? Yes, for instance, Agnieszka, thank you very much. So you've lost a passport and you need to somehow retrieve it, get a new one, get a temporary one. And this leads to a whole sequence of things and a whole sequence of texts. That's what I want to show you. This is characteristic of the way that the requirements of the new Matura, the way we read them, are going to take shape. Why am I saying this? Because we already looked at the way that the new core curriculum for primary school got translated into the shape of originally informator for examinus ósmoklasisty, and then a sample exam paper, and finally the first ever exam. So I can say with a lot of confidence that this same type of thinking applied to a cognitively more mature learner will no doubt culminate in a lot more advanced tasks cognitively. So in this particular case, as you can see, the situation is they need to listen to the conversation, answer questions, read the information from the website, and then critically move away from the English and work with the information that they've collected in a piece of Polish text. So this is mediation in several different aspects rolled into one sequence of tasks, and they also need to work with two different language codes at the same time. Interestingly, the way that this sequence is actually structured together in Checkpoint, the way Monika does it, Monika Cichmińska, she always pushes the learner at the end of such a sequence to do something really higher order. And as you can see, this something, and it's quite a systematic thing for every unit, is they need to produce a presentation that will take advantage of all of the information and the language they've been collecting in this particular unit and produce the best piece possible. Definitely higher order. I hope you remember the presentations were at the highest, at the higher end of the things in Hughes and Dummett's terminology, and this is precisely how this can be done behind classroom doors on a systematic basis. So I hope that now you see mind the waking exercises. Thank you, Małgosia, for that. This, I hope, brings me naturally to my third claim that I started out from, which is that if you want to include those higher order thinking skills as part of your diet, and if you want to, in particular, reach into this realm of mediation tasks, then you really are in the world of integrated skills. There is no such thing as teaching reading alone, teaching listening alone. You will teach a bit of listening, but the display of understanding will no longer be simply ticking off certain predetermined set of closed answers. You will typically need to produce at least a small amount, or maybe a bigger amount, of your own text to show that you've understood. And not just basic level understanding, but also a bit of interpretation, or maybe more than a bit of interpretation. So producing a presentation would be one such sample output. Here is another such output. And now I'm drawing into Marta's book again, summarizing text in the in L2, as well as is the case here, not only in the medium in which the original text is, but maybe, as is the case here, orally, is a way to mediate written information orally, or maybe oral information as you listen to a text in a written form, or maybe summarizing in the form of a summary in the mother tongue. Here is an example of this from Password again, where they originally read a descriptive text in English. They did all the work, the comprehension work in English, but at some point they need to fill in the gaps in a summary of this text in Polish, in this case. Or yet another example where, this time from Checkpoint, they need to look at the information which is quite complex in terms of it being, an infographic of sorts. And again, they are filling in a summary of this text, which is in itself a different genre. So whether they move, between languages, whether they move between genres of text, or whether they move between one and the other at the same time, well, definitely is a case of higher order level thinking task and the skill of mediation applied to a genuine piece of classroom material completely on a systematic basis. And that's what I'm trying to show you. I am not asking you, in order to be able to do it, to invent crazy stuff, but rather be aware of the potential of great material and juice this to the full. And to sort of finish off, I hope that you see that doing it like that also contributes, or will contribute, to enhancing the quality of the input that the students produce. And that's the lovely extra benefit, isn't it? So you're helping them, you're scaffolding better language production by getting them to process material in a more in-depth way. All right? I hope you remember what my key strategy is. Let me check that you still remember. So my key strategy is what? Małgosia is saying it beautifully. A compilation of diversity leads to lexical and now I cannot see for a moment. I'm guessing grammatical precision. Okay, so what is my key strategy? Can anybody recall? The key strategy will be, okay, I'm waiting. There's so many people writing. A healthy diet, absolutely. So, a great teacher will spot the potential and will vary the level of cognitive challenge depending on how strong or weak the class happens to be on a given day. And that, of course, you know the best because you are wonderful teachers yourselves. And speaking of healthy diet, to sort of finish up with on a lighter note, and I hope that given what time of day it is and all the youngsters are in bed, I can finish off by saying that you really need to also create a little bit of space for yourselves, and take this with a pinch of salt. In other words, rather than letting yourself go down the panicky route, you're saying, look, actually, it's a good opportunity. I can be of wonderful use to my students. I can provide for the deficits that they have, and I know about them because I know about how they read, for instance, and because of that, I will be offering them an even more valuable type of service than perhaps I used to in the good old days. So this is the optimistic thought with which I'm going to leave you. And okay, somebody's going to already sip something red. Okay, I have a final cartoon for you, speaking about a balanced diet and loosening up a little bit. And this is the final cartoon. I hope you appreciate it. This is my way of saying thank you for being such a wonderful interactive, genuinely interactive audience, and all the wonderful comments and answers to my crazy questions. So thanks a lot for listening. Good luck with all of those wonderful tasks as of September 1st, and I certainly hope it made some sense for you. Thank you very much once again.
Dziękujemy bardzo, Grzegorzu, za wspaniałą, jak zwykle, sesję. Czy jakieś pytania mają Państwo do sesji, do prezentacji? Jeśli nie, to ja jeszcze sobie szybciutko pozwolę przypomnieć o naszych dwóch kursach, Checkpoint i Password Reset, oba napisane przez polskie autorki, Monikę Ciechmińską, Martę Rosińską. Jeśli potrzebują Państwo więcej szczegółów na temat książek, to oczywiście zapraszamy do kontaktu z naszymi reprezentantami. Na stronie internetowej w zakładce reprezentanci są wszystkie kontakty. Jeśli są już Państwo zdecydowani na korzystanie z naszych kursów, to oczywiście warto się skontaktować z reprezentantem i wypełnić informacje o wykorzystywanym podręczniku, aby zapewnić sobie wszystkie niezbędne pomoce dydaktyczne, a wśród nich oczywiście Teachers Books z nadpisanymi odpowiedziami, zeszyt ćwiczeń w wersji dla nauczyciela z odpowiedziami, Teachers Resource Center z oprogramowaniem do tablicy interaktywnej, filmami, generatorem testów dla podręcznika Checkpoint, a także testy w formacie Word i PDF. A ponadto każdy nauczyciel otrzymuje oczywiście Matura Speaking Cards przygotowane przez Karolinę Lubas, blogerkę i nauczycielkę, oraz Grammar News Worksheets, które przygotowała dr Monika Ciechmińska. Wspaniałe arkusze pracy, dzięki którym będą Państwo mogli powtórzyć gramatykę, sprawdzić znajomość środków językowych zarówno na poziomie podstawowym, jak i na poziomie rozszerzonym, a także skorzystać oczywiście z elektronicznych materiałów na naszej platformie staffroom.pl, gdzie znajdą Państwo teaching notes, testy, dodatkowe karty pracy, nagrania audio ze skryptami, klucze odpowiedzi, rozkłady materiałów, plany wynikowe, kryteria oceniania i wiele innych. Ponadto nasz hit, oczywiście How to Power Your Point, czyli dr Grzegorz Śpiewak podpowie, w jaki sposób zaplanować, przygotować i wygłosić super prezentację. zarówno dla Waszych uczniów, jak również myślę, że każdy tutaj będzie mógł skorzystać z tego wspaniałego materiału. Bardzo serdecznie dziękujemy. Czy jakieś pytania być może dotyczące naszych podręczników się w Państwa głowach pojawiły? Bo jest z nami obecny Paweł Nosek, on chętnie odpowie na wszelkie pytania. Jeśli nie, to ja serdecznie Państwu dziękuję. Bardzo dziękuję Grzegorzowi za wspaniałą prezentację. Bardzo dziękuję Pawłowi za obecność. Zapraszam serdecznie do kontaktu z naszymi reprezentantami. Oni są dla Państwa zawsze, służą radą, pomocą. Serdecznie dziękujemy za dzisiaj i zapraszamy na kolejne webinaria wydawnictwa Macmillan. Dziękuję bardzo. Dobranoc.